The Lakers take on the Pacers, 7 o'clock Eastern start time. Indiana's -1.5, totals 218. And if you want to see which one of these free YouTube picks on my channel that I'm actually betting on personally, there's only one way to do that, and that's to sign up for a membership on my website at brockpage.com. We're 8-2 in our last 10 NBA tier package picks on brockpage.com. And the good news is we have another NBA tier package pick going off here this evening. We currently have over 985 members who are signed up and active on that site. And if you end up really enjoying this video here today, please feel free to give it a thumbs up by smashing that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please feel free to hit that subscribe button as well. I'd love to connect with you on a daily basis. Now, the Pacers have won their last 2 straight, 5-2 straight up on their home court this season. The Pacers have also successfully covered the point spread in 5 out of those 7 home games. Indiana's in the top 10 in shooting the 3-ball at home. Miles Turner's draining nearly 43% of his three-pointers, over 12.5 points a game for Turner. Meanwhile, Malcolm Brogdon is averaging nearly 21 points a game himself, along with 6 boards, 6 assists. The Pacers are currently in the top 10 in home offensive field goal percentage. They're taking on a Lakers team who lost 4 out of their last 5, and they successfully covered the point spread just once during that stretch. Now, the LA Lakers, they also play their worst basketball on the road. Just 2-5 straight up when traveling, 2-5 against the spread in those road games. The Lakers allow more points per contest on the road than any other team in basketball. They're also shooting just 30% from 3-land when traveling. When it comes to the injury report, Reeves and James are questionable. Meanwhile, Karis LeVert is questionable for Indiana. When it comes to the total in this one, 2 out of LA's last 3 got over the line. 6-3 to the over in their last 9. I'm going to lean toward the Pacers -1.5 over 218. Next matchup, Hornets Magic, 7 o'clock Eastern start time. Charlotte's -8, totals 219.5. The Hornets have won 6 out of their last 7 ball games, 6-1 against the spread during that stretch. Charlotte certainly had no problem scoring this season. They're in the top 3 in scoring on average per game, top 3 in offensive three-point percentage. Miles Bridges is scoring over 20.5 points a game, 7 rebounds, 3 assists for the forward. Meanwhile, LaMelo Ball is scoring nearly 20 points a night himself, 8 rebounds, 7 assists for Melo. Now, defensively, the Hornets are in the top 10 in guarding the 3-ball. They're taking on an Orlando team who lost 8 out of their last 10, and they actually have just 1 victory on their home court this year. Now, leading scorer Cole Anthony is out for tonight's action. Moore and Carter Williams, they're also out for the Magic. Orlando's failed to cover in 6 out of 7 home games this season, and they score fewer points per contest at home than any other team in the association. The Magic scoring just 94 points a game in front of their own fans. 30% shooting from 3-land in that same category. Now, injury-wise, Harris is also questionable for the Magic. Washington's questionable for Charlotte. When it comes to the total in this one, Charlotte's last 2 straight fell under the number. 6-1 to the under in their last 7. Meanwhile, Orlando went 60% to the under in their last 10 themselves. I'm going to lean toward Charlotte -8. Under 219.5. Next game, Suns, Cavs, 7 o'clock Eastern start time. Phoenix is -6.5, totals 209. The Suns have won 13 straight. They're first in the NBA in offensive field goal percentage. Devin Booker scoring 22 points a game, 5 rebounds, 4 assists for Book. Devin's also drilling nearly 40% of his three-pointers. Meanwhile, DeAndre Ayton's averaging 16 points a night, along with a dozen rebounds. Phoenix is in the top 5 in scoring on average per game. They're taking on a Cleveland squad who lost their last 4 straight, and they may have to go to work without Darius Garland. He's questionable with a neck. The Cavs currently have a losing record at home, and they're averaging just 99 points a game in front of their home crowd. The Cavaliers are currently in the bottom 5 in home offensive rebounding. Now, injury-wise, Osman and Stevens, they're questionable for the Cavs. Mobley is still out. Meanwhile, for the Suns, Nader is listed as questionable with a knee. When it comes to the number in this one, the Suns' last 3 straight all got over the number. 60% to the over in their last 10 meetings with Cleveland. Meanwhile, the Cavs saw 2 out of their last 3 get over the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Phoenix minus 6.5 over 209. Next ball game, it is going to be Nets versus the Celtics, 7:30 Eastern start time. Brooklyn is -1, totals 215.5. And speaking of the total on this one, the Nets saw their last 3 straight get over the posted number, 6-1 to the over in their last 7. Brooklyn's officially 5-4 to the over on the road this season. Meanwhile, Boston saw 2 out of their last 3 get over the line themselves. And as far as picking a winner in this one is concerned, this game's being featured as my $1.99 daily best play on BrockPage.com today. So if you want to see whether I'm leaning toward the Celtics in front of their home crowd, or if I'm leaning toward the Nets traveling to Boston, there's only one way to find out, and that's to sign up for my $1.99 daily best play on BrockPage.com. But as far as making a free pick goes, I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the over 215.5. Next contest, it is going to be Heat versus the Timberwolves, 8 o'clock Eastern start time. Miami's -2, totals 212.5. But as good as Miami's been playing recently, they did fail to cover in their last 2 straight. Miami also ranks in the bottom 10 in the league in second quarter scoring on the road. Now they're taking on a Minnesota club who's on a 4-game winning streak themselves. And in addition to that, they also went 6-1 against the spread in their last 7. Minnesota leads the entire NBA in defending the 3-ball. The T-Wolves are holding their opponents to just 29% shooting from beyond the arc. They're also in the top 3 in defensive field goal percentage at home. Now, scoring-wise, Karl Anthony Towns is averaging over 23 points a game, along with 9 rebounds, 3 assists. The big man's also drilling nearly 46% of his three-pointers. Meanwhile, Anthony Edwards is dropping 22 points a night himself, 6 rebounds, 3 assists for Edwards. The T-Wolves are in the top 5 in first quarter scoring. And when it comes to the injury report, Okogie is questionable for Minnesota. Garrett is questionable for Miami. Now, total-wise, Miami went 70% to the over in their last 10. They also saw 9 out of their last 10 head-to-head meetings with Minnesota get over the line as well. I'm going to lean toward Minnesota +2 over 212.5. Next matchup, Wizards-Pelicans, 8 o'clock Eastern tip-off. The Wizards are -3.5, totals 209. Despite the recent skid, the Wizards have played terrific on the defensive end of the court. They lead the NBA in fewest points allowed per contest on the road. They're also first in the NBA in defensive field goal percentage when traveling. Washington's currently holding their opponents to just 31% shooting from 3-land. Now, scoring-wise, Bradley Beal's averaging 23 points a game, along with 5 rebounds, 6 assists. Meanwhile, big Montrezl Harrell is dropping 17.5 points a game, along with 9 boards, couple assists. Washington's in the top 5 in offensive rebounding. They're taking on a New Orleans squad who lost 8 out of their last 10, and they successfully covered the point spread in just 30% of those games. Williamson and Holmes are still out. Graham is questionable. The Pels have gotten the W in just 3 of 19 contests this season, and they've gotten the W just twice in front of their home fans. Now, the Pelicans are scoring just 100 points a game, and they're also in the bottom 10 in points allowed. Now, injury-wise, once again, Devontae Graham is questionable for the Pelicans. Meanwhile, for Washington, Thomas Bryant is out. When it comes to the scoring in this one, Washington's 9-1 to the under in their last 10 ball games, 75% to the under when traveling. Meanwhile, the Pelicans are 14-5 to the under for the entire season themselves. I'm going to lean toward Washington -3.5 under 209. Next contest, it is going to be Bulls versus the Rockets, 8 o'clock Eastern start time. Chicago's minus 8.5, totals 213. The 12-6 Bulls currently lead the NBA in offensive field goal percentage on the road. They're also shooting a league best 85% from the foul line. DeMar DeRozan's averaging 26 points a game, 5 rebounds, 4 assists for DeMar. Meanwhile, Zach LaVine's dropping over 25.5 points a game himself, 5 rebounds, 3 assists for LaVine. And of course, defensively, the Bulls allow only 103 points a game. And they're in the top 10 in road defensive rebounding. They're squaring off against a Rockets team who's gotten the W in just 1 out of 17 contests for the entire year. And despite catching double digits in many of their games, Houston also failed to cover the point spread in 8 out of their last 10. Now, John Wall's still out. Porter is questionable. The Rockets are making just 30% of their three-pointers. They're also averaging only 99 points a game at home. Now, injury-wise, once again, Porter is questionable for Houston. Meanwhile, for Chicago, Vucevic and Caruso, they're questionable for them. When it comes to the scoring in this one, 5 out of Chicago's last 7 fell under the line. Meanwhile, the Rockets are 5-1 to the under at home, 12-5 to the under for the whole year. I'm going to lean towards Chicago, minus 8.5, under 213. Next contest, Jazz Thunder, 8 o'clock Eastern start time. The Utah Jazz are minus 12.5, numbers 209. The Jazz won 3 out of their last 4 ball games, 3-1 against the spread during that stretch. Utah leads the NBA in defensive rebounding on the road, and they're holding their opponents to just 29% shooting from three-land in that same category. Now, scoring-wise, Donovan Mitchell's averaging 24 points a game, 4 rebounds, 4 assists for Don. Meanwhile, Bojan Bogdanovic is drilling 40% of his three-pointers, 17 points a night for Bogey. The Jazz are in the top 3 in scoring, top 3 in offensive rebounding. They're taking on a Thunder team who's on a 3-game losing streak, just 1-5 straight up in their last 6. OKC scores fewer points per contest than any other team in the NBA. They're scoring just 98 points a game. They're also making only 30% of their three-pointers. OKC is also dead last in offensive field goal percentage. Now, injury-wise, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's out with an ankle. And when it comes to the total in this one, OKC did see their last 2 straight get over the number. Utah's 3-0 to the over in their last 3 themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Utah Jazz, minus 12.5, over 209. Next ball game, Pistons, Bucks, 9 o'clock East. Milwaukee's minus 14, totals 214.5. The Bucks allow only 103 points per contest at the Fiserv Forum, top 3 in defensive field goal percentage. The Bucks are also limiting their competition to just 30% shooting from beyond the arc at home as well. Scoring-wise, Giannis Antetokounmpo is averaging nearly 27 points a game, 11 boards, 6 assists for the Greek Freak. Meanwhile, Chris Middleton's dropping over 17.5 points a night himself, 4 rebounds, 4 assists for Middleton. The Bucks currently lead the NBA in offensive rebounding at home. They're also in the top 10 in offensive three-point percentage. They're taking on a 4-13 Pistons team who lost 7 out of their last 10. Detroit's dead last in offensive rebounding, dead last in shooting the 3-ball. Detroit scoring only 99 points a game, and they're barely making 30% of their three-pointers. Meanwhile, defensively, Detroit's also dead last in defensive field goal percentage as well. Injury-wise, Hayes is still out. Stewart's out on suspension. Meanwhile, for Milwaukee, Ojale is out for them. And when it comes to the number in this one, Milwaukee's 8-1 to the under at the Fiserv, 72% to the under for the whole year. I'm going to lean toward Milwaukee, minus 14, under 214.5. Next matchup, Raptors, Grizzlies, 8 o'clock Eastern start time. Memphis is minus 3.5, totals 221. Despite a really nice stretch of games here for Memphis, these guys give up more points per contest than any other team in the NBA. They're They're also dead last in defending the three ball. They're letting their opponents drill nearly 41% of their three-pointers against them. The Grizzlies are currently in the bottom three in defensive field goal percentage as well. They're taking on a Toronto team who plays their best basketball on the road, despite their recent skid. Toronto ranks in the top 5 in defensive rebounding on the road, and they're allowing just 103 points a game when traveling. Now, scoring-wise, Freddie VanVleet is scoring nearly 20 points a game, along with 4 rebounds, 6 assists. Meanwhile, Pascal Siakam scoring over 17.5 points a night himself, 6 boards, 3 assists for Siakam. Pascal's also draining nearly 43% of his three balls. The Raptors, as a team, are making 85% of their free throws away from home as well. Injury-wise, Anunoby, Watanabe, and Achua are questionable for Toronto. Meanwhile, for Memphis, Melton and Merrill are out for them. Brooks is questionable as well. The Grizzlies saw their last 4 straight all get over the line. Meanwhile, Toronto's 5-1 of the over in their last 6. I'm going to lean toward Toronto plus 3.5 over 221. Next matchup, it is going to be Hawks versus the Spurs, 8:30 Eastern tip-off. Atlanta's -4, numbers 220.5. But despite their current win streak, Atlanta plays terrible on the road. As a matter of fact, they're one of the worst road teams in the NBA right now. Atlanta's just 1-8 straight up when traveling this season, and they failed to cover the point spread in all 9 of those road games. The Hawks are scoring just 103 points a game offensively on the road. Meanwhile, defensively, Atlanta's in the bottom 5 at road points allowed. They're taking on a Spurs team who has a winning record against the spread at home this season. And as a matter of fact, the Spurs are scoring more points at home than any other team in the NBA. They're averaging 117 points a night at the AT&T Center. They're also first in the league in offensive field goal percentage. DeJounte Murray scoring over 18 points a game, 8 rebounds, 8 assists for the guard. Meanwhile, Keldon Johnson is scoring over 14.5 points a night himself, 6 rebounds, couple assists for Keldon. San Antonio is in the top 5 in shooting the 3-ball at home as well. When it comes to the injury report, McDermott is questionable for the Spurs. Hunter's still out for the Hawks. Now, total-wise, San Antonio saw 4 out of their last 6 ball games get over the line. San Antonio also saw all 7 of their home games this year get over the posted total as well. I'm going to lean towards San Antonio plus 4 over 220 and a hook. Next game, Sixers, Warriors, 10 o'clock Eastern start time. Golden State's -10.5, totals 218. The Warriors have won their last 4 straight, 11-1 straight up in their last dozen. Golden State leads the NBA in scoring on average per game. They're also in the top 3 in offensive rebounding. Steph Curry scoring 28 points a game, 5 rebounds, 6 assists for Steph. Curry's also drilling over 41% of his three-pointers. Meanwhile, Andrew Wiggins is averaging over 19 points a game, along with 4 rebounds. The Warriors lead the NBA in defensive field goal percentage as well. They're giving up just 101 points a night. They're taking on a depleted Sixers team who's still going to work without Joel Embiid. Meanwhile, Green, Harris, and Seth Curry, they're all questionable to play as well. The Sixers have lost 6 out of their last 8, and they're in the bottom 3 in the NBA in offensive rebounding. Meanwhile, defensively, Philadelphia's in the bottom 10 in guarding the 3-ball away from home. Now, total-wise, 3 out of Philadelphia's last 4 fell under the number, 11-7 to the under for the entire season. Meanwhile, Golden State, 60% to the under at the Chase Center, 11-6 to the under for the whole year as well. I'm going to lean toward Golden State, -10.5, under 218. Next and final matchup, it is going to be Blazers, Kings, 10 o'clock East. Portland's -3, totals 224.5. Now, Portland's one of the worst road teams in the NBA, similar to Atlanta. They're just 1-7 straight up when traveling, 1-7 against the number in those road games. Portland is dead last in the NBA in defensive field goal percentage on the road. They're also letting their opponents make 41% of their three-pointers when traveling. They're taking on a Sacramento club who scores a lot of points early in the game. Sacramento is currently in the top 10 in first quarter scoring at home. They also lead the NBA in second quarter scoring as well. De'Aaron Fox is dropping nearly 20 points a game, 3 rebounds, 5 assists for Fox. Meanwhile, Harrison Barnes is scoring 19 points a game himself, 7 rebounds, 2.5 assists for Barnes. Now, Harrison's also drilling 40% of his three-pointers. When it comes to the scoring in this one, Sacramento's 7-2 to the under at home, 61% to the under for the whole year. I'm going to lean towards Sacramento +3, under 224.5. And with that, guys, now it's time for our quick pick recap. Powered to you by my website at brockpage.com, where we are 8-2 in our last 10 NBA tier package picks. I like Indiana -1.5 over 218. Charlotte -8 under 219.5. I like Phoenix -6.5 over 209. I'm also leaning toward the over 215.5 in the Brooklyn-Boston game. Give me Minnesota +2 over 212 and a hook. Washington -3.5 under 209. Chicago -8.5 under 213. Utah Jazz -12.5 over 209. Milwaukee -14 under 214 and a hook. Toronto +3.5 over 221. San Antonio +4 over 220.5. Golden State -10.5 under 218. Before I give you my next and final free pick for the video, one final reminder that we are 8-2 in our last 10 NBA tier package picks on brockpage.com. I'm going to lean towards Sacramento +3, under 224.5. And with that, guys, now it's time for our shout out of the day. And that's going to go to Lacrosse Master, who said the other day, or what was that, this morning? They said either yesterday or this morning. Thanks, Brock. Always appreciate it. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on brockpage.com. If you guys do end up getting a membership here today on my website, just keep in mind, you're going to get billed the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. So if you do end up getting a membership here today on brockpage.com, you are going to get access to that content all the way through the end of November. But I do tell folks in every single video, the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, guys, happy Wednesday to you. Happy hump day to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at brockpage.com.